And welcome to today's OpenSolar webinar, where we're going to be showing you how to plug the leaks in your sales funnel using our brand new sales tool. I'm Holly Carrick, I'm OpenSolar's UK General Manager, and thanks for joining us. Before we get started, please use the chat function to say who you are and where you're joining from. And you can also use this throughout the session to ask us any questions. Our team are on standby to help you. So let's get into it. Today, we're focused on one practical problem: quotes that should keep moving, but don't. Perhaps the customer needs a clearer proposal. Sometimes they need different purchasing options, and often they are ready to move forward. But the final step creates more follow-up and friction. So we're going to show you where these leaks are happening and how we can help your team move from proposal to payment with fewer handoffs. To start, let's look at why this matters for UK solar pros right now. Your customers are used to comparing energy choices before they commit. They look at tariffs, payment methods, they watch their bills. They may also compare what different electricity suppliers will pay them for the energy they export back to the grid. So by the time they're looking at a solar proposal, they're already weighing things up. They're asking things like, which choice makes sense for me? What export rate are you assuming? What will I pay and how? And what happens after I choose? So a proposal cannot just simply show a system and a price anymore. It has to help the customer by showing them all the options and all of the steps in one place. So today we're going to look at 3 leaks. The first one is value. So maybe the customer struggles to see what they're buying and why the proposal is worth choosing. The second leak is the buying path. Perhaps the customer cannot find an option that fits their budget or their payment preferences. And the third leak is the final step. So the customer may be ready to move forward, but checkout, payment, and signature processes can create even more follow-up and friction. So let us show you how to present your proposals clearly, plug those leaks, and win more business. You'll see a mix of familiar OpenSolar workflows and newer checkout capabilities, all designed to help your team move from proposal to payment with ease.
Hi everyone, I'm Lee, UK Pro Product Specialist here at OpenSolar. One quick point of order: the chat will remain active throughout the session, so please feel free to submit your questions as we go. Now I'm going to show you exactly how OpenSolar's sales and conversion tools help plug 3 of the most common leaks in solar sales funnels that Holly just introduced. First, we'll look at how to make the proposal and its value easier for the customer to understand. Then we'll look at 2 ways to give the customers a clearer buying path by increasing affordability and spreading out payments. And finally, we'll follow the customer through our new checkout experience that minimizes friction and drop-off by making it quick and easy to sign and pay. Let's start with the proposal. The first leak happens when the customer is interested, but the proposal doesn't make the recommendation easy enough to understand. For UK customers, that may mean questions about the system, equipment, tariff and export assumptions, expected savings, and how solar fits with other energy choices in the home. In this section, I'll show you the proposal templates available through Sales Machine Proposal, how you can customize the content around the customer conversation and your brand, and how imagery and broader electrification options can make the recommendations clearer. We'll also look at Quick Quote for work that doesn't necessarily require a full solar design. The goal is to help the customer understand what you're recommending and why it fits. Sales Machine Proposal is the customizable quote and proposal experience inside OpenSolar. It gives the team different ways to present a quote depending on the customer and the way that you sell. Scroll brings the proposal together in one continuous customer journey, while Swipe provides a more visual presentation style experience, and Bespoke gives teams a unique proposal customized to their brand, content, and sales process. These options give you a clear starting point before you decide which details and sections the customer actually needs to see. Let's begin with Scroll. Now this is the Scroll proposal. It gives the customer one continuous proposal that they can just glide through at their own pace. They can review the equipment included in the quote, including products and system options that you're recommending. Then across the wider proposal, you can also bring in design assumptions, performance, financial story, so the customer doesn't have to try to piece together the recommendation across separate documents. Now, you can also include the sunpath diagram. This is generated for you directly from within the design and will help keep you in line with UK MCS requirements. It also gives you a practical way to explain the roof position, shading, and surrounding environment, and how this affects performance assumptions across any given day of the year. For the customer, it makes the reasoning behind the system easier to follow, and for your team, it helps the performance questions using the project information already included in the quote a lot easier. Once you've chosen the proposal format, you can decide what information your team actually shows within that. So here's, I'll demonstrate. If you head to the control zone and then head to purchase experience and proposal templates, this is where you'll be able to create and manage templates across your projects. The free scroll and swipe options give you basic branding and controls for content within your proposals, and you can apply core brand elements and choose which sections, figures, and product details are actually going to appear. If your team needs deeper customization around your brand, content, and sales process, Bespoke gives you an alternative built specifically for your business. Let's look at the controls available in the free templates first. So I'm going to duplicate the master version, and then I'll assign it to the project that we've just reviewed. Now, what's brilliant about this new feature is that as you're working, you'll actually have an enabled live editor. So you'll be able to see the proposal updates as you make the changes. So you're not editing without seeing the customer-facing result as you go. Now, for this proposal, we may want to simplify the financial story. So, for example, we could change the featured figures here. We could change payback over to something like net savings for the lifetime of the system. And then after we refresh, what will end up happening is you'll see those new featured figures popping up there right away. And this will give you the opportunity to dictate which figures need to be most prominent in the quote. And you'll also be able to choose things like product details and which sections appear or don't appear, depending on the nature of the customer conversation. That gives you a practical way to tailor the free templates around the customer conversation. And your teams that need to go further, for them, we've got bespoke proposals. These offer more customized options. So let's go back to a project template for now, where you can select these. So as I said, for the teams that need to go further, we've got a premium aesthetic tailored solution specifically for your brand. I'll quickly flip through some sample pages here. So depending on the budget and the requirements, custom and bespoke proposals give you more control over the look, content, and structure of the customer experience. In this example, you can see a proposal customized around a different brand and sales process. These options give you a more design-forward look that brings your business's personality and style into OpenSolar, really setting you apart from the competitors. By the way, this has been one of our most requested features, so it's really exciting to be able to finally present these new options for you here. Now, to explore Bespoke Proposal, just speak to your account manager or contact support. Now, lastly, let's talk about Swipe. Swipe gives you a more visual, interactive way to guide your customer through the proposal. You can introduce your business, explain your services, and present the system one section at a time, instead of giving your customer something that they need to scroll through all of the information all at once. What's brilliant is that all of the sections within here are totally customizable. Now, imagery plays an important part in that experience. So if, say, for example, standard imagery doesn't give you enough property detail, you can actually open up the Design tab, and from there, you can head to 3D Plus, where it's available. Now, 3D Plus does give you a more realistic view of the property, and you can rotate the model, show the roof faces, the pitch, the walls, the front and rear of the home, and the surrounding site for context. You can make the proposed layout easier for the customer to recognize and understand. And as with remote imagery, you can actually check the roof faces and the site conditions before finalizing the design. The layout may need to change after a site survey and some engineering checks have completed. Now let's have a look and see what this looks like through the new swipe proposal now. As I said earlier, this template is highly customizable. Sections can be added or removed to fit your sales flow and depending on the scenario with the customer. You can go through the proposal and you can see how the design connects to expected energy and financial outcome. And you can present everything back in pound sterling, which is great. You can see what products are included in the design. You can also talk about how energy is generated, used, imported, and exported. And you can show the financial figures across the lifetime of the system as well. So here, for example, you could show the customer's current situation, and then you could show over time how that situation doesn't get much better. But then with the new system, you can show how their monthly savings are going to improve month on month. And you can project that into the future as well over the life of the system. Now, estimated savings do depend on things like the type of tariff used, the usage, the system size, export assumptions, and other project inputs. Make sure to check all the assumptions before sending the proposal to the customer. The proposal can also now support a broader home energy conversation. So for example, if the homeowner says they're considering a heat pump, we can now add their gas usage and pricing information into the energy tab, as well as some basic information about the heat pump that is going to be included. At the appropriate time, you'll be prompted here in the other section to add the heat pump. And then finally, you're going to need to update the cost for the quote to include the heat pump itself and the installation. So for that, you can head over to the pricing tab where you can either manipulate this via the total pricing override or through the component pricing. Now let's jump into the proposal and see how the heat pump affects the saving figures once this is applied. We can see how the update shows the effects across electricity and gas, and the savings become clear as well. The customer will get to see quite easily how solar, battery and storage, and heating may work together rather than having to treat each part of these conversations about home energy separately. Now, you'll remember me mentioning just a little bit earlier that we've got this feature called Quick Quote. As we know, not every single job needs a full solar design. So for smaller jobs, like service work or add-ons, Quick Quote gives your team a simpler way to create a line item quote. All you need to do is just head to the home page and open up the menu just below where the address field is. And from here, you can select, there we go, you can select Quick Quote from here. Now, the next thing you'll be able to see is how you can add a cover message, explain the scope of work, include the relevant line items, and preview the customer-facing quote once that's ready. Now, the customer gets a clean, professional summary of the work and price and can jump straight into the checkout, giving you rapid-fire sales tool here for service calls and add-ons without your team needing to build a full solar design. This could be used for an annual heat pump service, an electrical call-out, maintenance work, or other standalone service where the customer just needs to know a clear price and the next step. We're rolling this feature out now, and if it's not available in your account just yet, please don't worry, it will be with you soon. Sign up to accept payments on OpenSolar to gain access. So in this first section, we covered the different proposal experiences available through Sales Machine Proposal, how scroll and the quote together in one continuous journey is delivered to the customer, while swipe gives you a more visual way to guide the conversation, and how to adjust the proposal using content, use of 3D Plus, and more property detail is needed. You can also include a broader home energy recommendation and create a simpler quick quote for service work. Now, for your team, these tools mean more control over how your recommendation is presented. For your customers, it means a clearer view of what they're buying and how it fits in with their requirements, ultimately making them more likely to say yes. Now that addresses the first leak. Once the customer understands the recommendation, the next question is, how are they going to pay for it? And for that, OpenSolar really does have quite a few solutions to help the cost of solar be easier for the customer and to manage, to manage how giving them a clearer path to move forward can be carried out. So here we have the first milestone payments, and then the main focus after that being the finance marketplace, the UK finance marketplace, which basically brings the available finance options into the proposal so the customer can compare and plan the buying route without actually being sent to a separate process elsewhere. Now, about the milestone payments, instead of having to ask the customer for a lump sum for the entire system, you can actually divide the system price into stages. So, for example, you may need to take a deposit early on, and then slightly later on, once the survey is completed or the design's been approved, you may take another payment, and then upon commissioning, you may take the final settlement. So for the customer, this makes it clear when what is due and can spread out the cost. And for your team, it makes the shared payment schedule that sales, administration, finance, and operations can refer to as the project moves forward. Now you can you can define the schedule. We ensure that it's implemented across the projects consistently. The customers also need help funding the system, and that's where the UK marketplace comes in. Now, instead of asking the customer to leave the proposal to research finance separately, where you could risk losing them, you can instead just bring the available finance options into the buying journey. The customer starts from the system that they're already reviewing, and they can just open up the finance marketplace directly from the proposal. Here, they'll be able to review the available options and compare the terms before starting an application. They'll be able to review deeper details such as the monthly repayment, the term, the APR, and the total payable amount, because as we know, this is quite important to have, since the monthly payments alone won't necessarily reflect the full cost of finance for the system. Now, all the customer needs to do at that point is select the option that they want to apply for, and they can begin their application. The finance journey stays connected within the proposal, which reduces the number of separate clicks and processes that the customer may need to follow. Just be aware that the finance marketplace is available for all MCS accredited UK organizations, and it's free to offer from within OpenSolar with no regulatory approval required. If it's not already available in your account, you can actually activate it quite easily from within the control zone. If you head to pricing and payment options and then click on payment options, you'll see the settings there to activate this. In this section, you saw two ways to give the customer a clearer buying path and reduce manual follow-up from your team. Milestone payments explain what is due and when, and can help spread the system costs for the customer, while the finance marketplace lets your customers browse and apply for the available finance options directly from the proposal. Now that addresses the second leak. So your customer now understands the recommendation and has chosen how they want to pay. The final step now is helping them sign and actually make that first payment. And that's often where the third leak in the funnel happens. And that's after the customer makes their choice. They understand the recommendation. They've decided how to fund it. But if the quote slows them down on things like signing, handling the deposit, and if there's any internal handoffs happening in separate places with multiple links and documents, things can get very messy. So for that, we're introducing a new unified checkout experience where the customer reviews the selection, the customer signs, and the customer pays, and your team gets to track all of that from within OpenSolar. Now, once the customer is ready to proceed, the proposal takes them into the checkout flow. This brings the acceptance, signature, and payment steps together rather than asking the customer to wait for separate documents and payment instructions to follow. I'll show you a couple of screenshots of what this looks like. Now, it is a mobile optimized checkout experience. The customer can review the system they selected. They can check the relevant terms. They can complete the required authorization steps and complete all steps directly from their phone. The layout keeps the next actions clear for the customer, so they can just move through the process without searching through the proposal again. At any point, the customer can leave, and if they come back, they can pick right up where they left off. When the finance marketplace is enabled, the customer is given more of a prompt to explore available finance options. If finance helps close the deal, they get given that last chance to take a look before proceeding with signing the contract. I'll show you a couple of screen grabs of what that looks like. Now, when the customer signs, both a copy of the signed documentation is sent to them, but also to your team, and they can sign digitally from their phone or computer. And once they've done that, it's at that moment that they're actually taken directly through to the next step, which is about the payment. In this example, the initial milestone payment is due today. If the customer chooses, they could pay by card, Google Pay, Apple Pay, or bank transfer, so long as you've dictated the payment options for that given milestone, which you do get to set up and configure. Now, that means that the contract can be signed and the deposit paid as part of the same checkout experience. Your team doesn't have to send separate payment link, and they don't need to follow up on whether or not the payment has been completed. The activity then connects back to cash flow. From the dashboard, your team can view customer invoices, check payment status, and see what still needs following up across the active projects. It gives sales, administration, finance, and operations a shared view of what has happened after the customer has accepted. Where account integrations are enabled, payment information can also connect with the relevant accounting workflow, reducing the need to enter the same information again. So that's the full chain. The customer chooses, the customer signs, the customer pays. And the team tracks what happens next directly from within OpenSolar. For the customer, the next steps remain clear and uncomplicated, which wouldn't be the case if there was a complicated paper trail. This way, everything is quick, mobile-friendly, simple, single checkout experience. As for you, the pro, the contract, payment activity, and the follow-up status all stays connected directly to the job. Now that addresses the third leak, preventing the customer who's ready to proceed from getting held up by a disconnected checkout or complicated administrative steps. So to bring everything together, today has been about helping you, the UK Solar Pro, plug the three most common leaks in the sales funnel. The first leak is proposal clarity. The customer needs to understand the system and the assumptions and the expected performance and why this recommendation fits their home. You got to see scroll, swipe, and proposal controls like 3D Plus, heat pump modeling, and quick quote, all there to help you and your team present that recommendation far more clearly. And then the second leak is the buying path. The customer needs to understand how they can pay, when what is due, and how the available finance terms compare. You got to see the milestone payments and the UK finance marketplace and how that can keep the choices connected directly within the proposal. Now, the third leak, and this is the final step, is that once the customer is ready, things like signing, payment, and internal tracking should not have to turn into a complicated affair of lots of separate follow-ups. You got to see how checkout, mobile signing, integrated payment, and cash flow can connect these steps. To start using the checkout and payment tools shown today, set up cash flow inside your OpenSolar account. Just be aware, please, legacy proposal configurations and older checkout flows will begin sunsetting a little later this year. As a result, we recommend that your team start reviewing and setting up these steps early. This is just so that your team have got plenty of time to familiarize themselves with that and move across long before any busy sales periods come into play. Now you can scan the QR code on screen or follow the link to open the UK Sales Toolkit. The toolkit includes setup checklists, help center guidance, proposal and checkout resources, finance and payment information, and regional notes for your team. Use it to work through the setup in a practical order and check each part of the workflow long before you actually need to start using that with your customers. And finally, Please feel free to reach out to us for support if you've got any additional questions on anything discussed today, be it proposal configuration, 3D Plus, quick quote, cash flow, checkout, or the finance marketplace. Again, I'm Lee, and thank you for joining us today.